Great. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us. Today we have John Loveday, who's the executive director of the South Carolina Whitmore School. And we are so excited to have him with us so we can learn a little bit more about how that school works, because I know school and education is a huge hot topic right now. So John, thanks for being here with us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the school and your involvement?
It's Whitmire, isn't it? Did I messed that up.
Whitmore.
Whitmore.
Yeah, that's correct.
Sorry. You were right.
No, you're right. You're right.
I thought I messed you up. I made the notes for her today a little bit, so I was afraid I'd put down the wrong one.
So South Carolina Whitmore School has been around since 2011. And we were founded by a South Carolina parent, actually. And long story short, her child was zoned for a really great school in South Carolina, but it wasn't a good fit for her child. And so she found a private online high school for her child, did well, went on to college, and was very successful. But she sat back and said, well, why isn't there a public school option for kids all across the state, just like my daughter? And so she actually was an educator by trade. She was a small business owner. So she actually quit her job, quit her business, and worked to open this school. And the school opened, and she hired me in year 3 to take it over. But we actually exist just for at-risk kids. At-risk is a very broad term, right? But anything that gets in a kid's way of finishing high school makes them at risk. Whether they are from a single parent household, whether they are from a transient family, a family of low income, and so forth. There's lots of reasons why you'd be considered at risk. But we want to not allow kids to fall through the cracks. And so I'm a big believer that talent and intelligence is equally distributed across South Carolina, but opportunity is not. And so we know that the quality of education across our state is largely defined by zip code. And one of the best ways that we can close that achievement gap is by introducing and putting a lot of money and resources towards online education. And we're starting to see that right now, of course, in COVID life. A lot of parents are getting immersed in online learning, and I think it's a great thing for folks to become more familiar with online learning.
So just for some people that are listening and ears are perking up, when you say at risk, now with COVID, could somebody qualify to be at risk if, hey, my parents both have to work and now they can't homeschool me? Would that qualify somebody?
It would. And if kids have health issues or if their parents have health issues, it's anything that gets in your way of finishing high school. And so we hear a lot of these terms: virtual school, online school, e-learning. They're all the same thing. And there's a really, I think, misconception that online learning is a great fit for everybody. And that's not the case. It is not a one size fit all. And so in the early years, e-learning and virtual learning really started back in 2006. And our former state superintendent of education, Ines Tenenbaum, was really an advocate for expanding online learning. And the reason why she wanted to do that was because you had a lot of kids in rural areas, like where I grew up in rural South Carolina, that didn't have access to AP courses and honors courses and so forth. And those kids were at a disadvantage by the time they got to college. And so she wanted to offer these AP and online courses from a distance through virtual SC. And so since then, it was very successful. It has grown in the past almost 15 years. And now we have full-time online schools like South Carolina Whitmore School. But it's not a one-size-fit-all. And we're not here to take over or to replace traditional schools. We're here to supplement.
So I heard you say it's a public school. So does it cost anything for the family to send their kid to that?
It doesn't. And really the only way in South Carolina by law that you can't operate a school statewide and be a public school is through the charter school avenue. And so that's why all virtual schools, public schools are charter schools, because, we serve kids here in Rensselaer County. We also serve kids in Charleston. We also serve kids in Myrtle Beach and Rock Hill. And so that is the only way by law that you can serve students statewide, is to be a public charter school. But by being a public charter school, there is no cost. You just have to live in South Carolina and be age appropriate, meaning you can't be over 21 years old. But beyond that, you can enroll, and it's a great fit for a lot of kids.
And I assume you were an educator in your previous life, but I assume there's requirements to everything. So like you have to have attendance. And how do you do attendance and those things that, could be fudged, I guess, or you think they could be fudged online?
So that's a great question. So every virtual school does it differently. So the way we do it at SC Whitmore School is we actually take attendance by submitting submitted work and qualify submitted work. And so let's say, I would imagine Brad was in my school, he would be the trouble student.
Yes.
And so
Ding,
if
ding,
Brad
ding.
submitted a math assignment that says,
Right.
I don't like math, math is dumb,
Right.
press submit.
Yeah.
Well, it would give you attendance credit for the moment.
Right.
But as soon as your teacher opened it up
Sure.
and looked at it and graded it, it'd be marked as unqualified and your attendance will go away.
Gotcha.
But as long as you gave an honest effort, we
Sure.
actually can see timestamps and the time spent on each lesson,
Sure.
that you get a credit for that. And so for us, attendance is always based on effort and work submitted.
Gotcha.
It's not just logging in, because
Right.
for us, if you log in, open a new tab and go to YouTube,
Right.
basically you walked in the front door and out the back. You
Right.
really weren't engaged and you really didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So that's the way we do it at our school.
Gotcha.
It's much more meaningful and much more, I think, effective way of
Sure. So
making attendance.
is this sort of like not a Montessori program, but like kind of learn at your own pace? I mean, because I was reading a little bit on the website that people could speed through it if they were gaining the knowledge, but they could also take their time if they need a little more time in certain subjects,
Yeah.
right?
So the old, and Marilyn, you'll know this, being an educator, the old term is seat time. So a very old school way of thinking about school is you had to be in school from August to May, and you had to have your behind in a seat for a certain number of days in order to get credit.
Sure.
Well, that concept is slowly going away, because in my mind, if you can display knowledge in any area, whether you're in real estate or you're a banker or whatnot, if you have the talent and the knowledge, that's what you need in life to be successful.
Sure.
And so that concept is going away. And so at our school, you can speed up or slow down. To give you an example, we had a student this past year. She was our valedictorian. She finished high school in 2 years.
Oh, wow.
She's from West Columbia. She was zoned for BC High School. And she was just bored in school.
Yeah.
And she was the young lady in the back of the class that would sleep because she was so bored. And she was on chapter 12. The class is on chapter 2.
Yeah.
And so she found us and she accelerated and she finished high school early. But you also have kids that maybe need extra time.
Sure.
And so we sometimes have kids that need a 5th or even a 6th year
Yeah.
if they're coming to us in a hole,
Yeah.
a proverbial hole.
Yeah.
And so it's a good fit for wherever kids are when they come to us.
So how does it work in a virtual learning environment with like the extra like music and art and PE, and how does that work?
Yeah. So by state law, any kid can participate in extracurriculars at their home, locally zoned school.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you are at ROTC or band, or if you play sports, you actually can still, go to Dreher High School, or you can go to BC High School and still do those things. We do have clubs, and in normal life, not COVID life, we
Right.
would meet face to face, and we can do things like that. But we try our best to find that balance so kids can still have a fairly traditional
Sure.
high school experience while still being online.
Yeah. Is everything online, like even the curriculum, like in modules, or is there a teacher that you report to and can work through stuff on?
It's both.
Oh,
It's
yeah?
both.
Oh,
And
cool.
so we do have asynchronous. We also have live instruction. And so, and that's what allows kids to speed up or slow down.
Yeah. So do you mail the frogs to people's house? Like when you start dissecting them? Or that always tripped me out back in the day, by the way.
We actually have a digital way to dissect the frog. It's a little anime. You can
You
cut
don't
it.
have
It
to
opens
smell the
open.
formaldehyde
Yeah. You don't
anymore.
have to
Yeah.
smell anymore. So we're in 2020 officially. So yeah, we don't
That's
miss
awesome.
that.
So let's talk a little bit of COVID. I know this is a high school that you're the executive director over, but I think it probably plays over all age ranges. Like people are thinking about e-learning, which a lot of the local counties are doing now, which just is, I feel like, a stopgap so they can get back their butts back in the seats. So how would a program, a charter school like yours, not really be that fit? Because can you jump in and out of the charter school back and forth, or?
Technically, yeah. I mean, it'll be, you're transferring from one public school to the other. So you could, it's probably not ideal as a parent to put your kid into an environment and then snatch them up quickly and change. I do think we will see some kids enroll in schools like mine, like SC Whitmore School, and then maybe the year after next, when COVID is a thing of the past, hopefully, we may see some go back, and that's okay. But I think many will see when they're with us that this is a really great fit. I actually can finish my high school requirements early, and I can go ahead and take dual enrollment, and I can start, college at USC or Clemson or College of Charleston as a sophomore. We have kids all the time that do that, and with dual enrollment in South Carolina, it's actually paid by the state, and so you're not paying for dual enrollment courses when you're at our school. And so we have kids all the time that start college and they're already halfway through their freshman year.
Gotcha.
And it doesn't cost anything. And so it's a great asset.
Right.
And there's no detriment to a student trying to get into college, like going through your program. Like they're not picked over for a traditional kind of high school?
So last year, we actually set a school record. We had a young lady that was admitted to Harvard, and that was our first Ivy League student that got into an Ivy League school. I think in the early years, 10, 15 years ago, there was more of a stigma.
Sure.
But even Harvard, they're now offering PhDs and doctorate programs online. And so I think everyone just understands that this is the future, and we can definitely have both in person and virtual, but you have to embrace this because this is not just a fad, it's here to stay.
Sure. Yeah. And so are there elementary and middle school online schools as well, or online charter schools?
There are. And it's obviously a very different mechanism when you're dealing with elementary and middle school. When you have elementary and middle school, as a parent, you have to sign that you will be there, you will assist, you have to do certain things. Gotcha. So it's much more of a partnership with the parent and the teacher and the student together if you're in that age grade.
That makes sense.
But for high school, of course, to me, it actually sets kids up better for college and career. Our school versus a traditional school, because when you're in a traditional school, I mean, the bell rings and you mosey from one class to the other. At our school, you have to get up, you have to create your schedule, you have to be proactive, you have to submit your work. Now, of course, we will call you, text you, email you, we'll harass you if you're not working in a good way. But it really does set you up well for success in the real world, especially, nowadays, if you're in business, you may have to jump on a Zoom call. You may have a business client that is 3 states away.
Sure.
Well, our school sets you really up well for that kind of environment.
Sure. So do y'all actually, just side note, do you have an actual building your teachers work out of? They work remote as well? Yeah.
So we have a building about 10 minutes from here in Columbia. And we have 40 employees, and roughly half work out of the office and half work at home. And so our teachers work from home. We have teachers from Greenville, Spartanburg, Columbia, Myrtle Beach, Charleston, all over. Our office staff works here in Columbia. So that's our administration, our school counselors, and so forth. And so we kind of had that blend of both.
Do you have a school nurse still?
We don't. We don't have a school nurse.
Curious.
But we may have some openings soon. So if you want to apply, I can send you an application.
I got 2 little girls. I got Band-Aids for days.
There you go. Love it.
So I've always been curious with virtual learning how you do field trips, or do you just not do field trips?
Yeah, so we do both. So we do both in person and virtual. You can find all kind of really cool virtual field trips. You can go to the Louvre and you can go room to room. You can see all these really great things, which obviously would be really hard to do with a group of students. Very expensive. We also, again, in pre-COVID life, we would meet for coffee. We actually, every month we have coffee with counselors. And so we have 4 school counselors for our school, which is only 450 kids, which is a very small ratio. It's about 1 to 125. In most public schools, that's 1 to 600 ratio. And so we need that because we know we need our counselors to really build relationships and get to know our kids. And so they actually would travel to Greenville, Spartanburg, all over the state, and they would find a random Starbucks, a random, mom and pop coffee shop. And they would just meet with kids and say, hey, we're going to be in your area next Tuesday from 9 to 11. Come hang out. Let's talk. And, I can help you with your schoolwork or whatnot. So, those are neat things we try to do.
Yeah. So equipment wise, if somebody was thinking about doing this online charter school, what obviously internet would be number one, I would assume. Just computer and internet and you're pretty much set, and they'll mail books, or how do you do all that? Yeah.
So all the content's online. So there's no books.
Should have picked up on that.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
I was not the valedictorian.
Back in the early years, we actually did send books. Imagine the logistical nightmare of mailing books and getting them back. And it was tough. But yes, everything is online. And, one thing I'm really passionate about right now is the digital divide. And we know that in our state, at least 25% of our students across our state don't have access to internet. And that is a 21st century infrastructure problem. There are pictures from 1920 and 1930 in South Carolina. They were coming through and they were bringing electricity to rural parts of our state. And that was such a groundbreaking thing to do in South Carolina. Well, this is no different. We have to have internet access all across South Carolina. I live in downtown Columbia, and my internet is very unreliable. And there are times where it is very fast, and we all live in the general area, and sometimes it's very, very, very slow. And so imagine how bad it is in Bamberg and Allendale and rural Aiken County and so forth. And so really are pushing all of our state leaders to really make that a priority.
Yeah.
Not only is it good for our students to access schools like South Carolina Whitmore School, but if you are a parent trying to apply for a job, to look for a job, to apply for a home loan with the art of real estate, I mean, there are so many things that you have to do. If you don't have internet access, you just can't do that. You're at a severe disadvantage. And so there are a lot of kids that we believe would love to come to a school like ours, but simply can't. And so it's a real shame. We're really pushing everyone that we know and everyone that will listen to help address that, because we're going to need that in order to push South Carolina forward.
Yeah, I met with Senator Clyburn, Congressman Clyburn, excuse me, about last May. I was in his office, and he was saying that the next infrastructure bill that he's going to be a part of, it will be internet will be part of now infrastructure, like water and sewer. Because I mean, obviously, a lot of his constituents are in the Orangeburg, Barnwell County, that kind of area. So I think we got a really powerful guy working on it. So if they can get the money out of it.
Well, it's going to take from the top down to really make it happen. It's not just the folks at State House or City Council. I mean, it is really from the top down. The federal government has to get involved. But throw out some numbers here. So there are roughly 800,000 kids in our state that are in K through 12 public schools in South Carolina. Wow. So if roughly 20 to 25% don't have access to the internet, that's 160,000 roughly kids across the state.
Sure.
And this past spring, from March until now, there were 16,000 kids that totally went MIA during COVID. That's 16,000. And these were probably kids that already were behind anyway, that were at risk, that were in low income areas and single parent households and so forth. And so a lot of folks are really, really concerned about those kids, and they will continue to fall into that hole deeper and deeper and deeper. And so there's a lot of things that we have to obviously work through the next few years to catch these kids back up. But virtual schools, they are a great fit for many. I think especially in the world we live in right now, is a great option to keep folks safe and to also help folks continue to move forward.
Who are they not good for? Sorry to cut you off. Who would you think that school, like an online learning school, would not be? I need a book, obviously.
Well, and that was a misconception 10, 15 years ago, that we were out to replace traditional schools. And there was literally, there was a wall up. I remember even small things like contacting traditional public schools to get records requests for a kid that left their school and came to ours. We would have a hard time getting just records because it was such a combative environment. That has changed tremendously, and it's more of a partnership now versus the combative environment. Who it's not good for? It's not good for kids that are not willing to be organized and self-motivated, or at least be out of their comfort zone. It is challenging when there's not parental support. You can still do it, but the kid really has to want to do it themselves. We definitely see a lot of times education, when you get to high school, parents will oftentimes think, okay, I did it. My kid's 14, 15, 16, 17 years old. They're basically grown now, right? So it's now your turn to take care of it. And that's obviously not the case. We still need parents to be involved. It really is just a personality thing. And we tell students when they enroll at our school up front, we have an orientation that all kids have to go through before they're in our school. We're honest and we say, look, this is not a good fit for everybody. Here's the kind of things you need to be successful here. If you're willing to communicate with us, you're willing to check your emails, to text with us, to call us, if you're willing to be out of your comfort zone, this will be great. And you will do really well in college and career. If you're not good at communication, if you're not willing to be organized, you're not willing to set a schedule, then it probably won't be a good fit. And so we try to be honest up front to let them know that here's what it is. Because nothing in life is a one size fit all. Nothing works for everybody every time. And so I think the more we can add layers to things, the more folks we can help be successful.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, so if people are listening to this and are like, okay, this sounds great. Like, what is the next step? What is the process for them to get their child enrolled in your school?
Yeah. So our website is SC Whitmore. It's spelled just like it sounds, WHITMORE school.org. And there's a big orange button that says enroll now. And it's like enrolling at any other traditional public school. We need proof of residency. We need home language survey and things like that. you will go, we used to, again, pre-COVID, we would have a face-to-face orientation, and we would have sort of like a traveling road show. Wherever you live, we would come to you, and we would do this. But now we're seeing COVID life is all online. So orientation is online. But orientation is simply just to give you the nuts and bolts of how the school works and the logistics of it and so forth. That way you know what you're kind of getting into. But yeah, just visit scwhitmoreschool.org and you can click on there, and lots of great videos, lots of good information. You can learn more about our school.
So I've got a question. We can cut this out if you don't like the question. But
That's a great setup.
I've got a 5-year-old that's getting ready to start kindergarten. One of us we will have somebody home with her, so she's obviously not staying home by herself. But would you feel that online school, because a lot of parents have that choice right now, or e-learning, which is a mixture of assignments sent home through the school district and then back in the seats when that's available, like what's your gut or professional opinion, or again, we can cut it out, but like, do you think that's a good move to give stability of just all year through, or going back and forth?
So the terminology, and again, this is a very common thing. So that's called blended. So when you're doing both in person and online, it's called blended. But e-learning, online learning, virtual learning, that's all synonyms.
Gotcha.
Yes. I mean, as you know, I have a 5-year-old too that starts kindergarten in the fall. And so his school will be online full time for 2 weeks. And then they'll go to 1 day. And then when the numbers of COVID rates go down, they'll continue on more and more after that. He's 5, so he of course wants to see his friends and he wants a traditional environment and so forth. I think for our family, we're lucky because I'm an educator and I work in an online school, so I can stay with him those first 2 weeks and I can be his teacher. But everyone's not that lucky. So the biggest thing for me is a lot of traditional school districts, they said in the past, few months, that we're going to quote unquote go online.
Right.
Well, you can't just flip the switch and go online. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
And, I was a traditional educator, brick and mortar educator before I got to the online environment. And I've been in online for 12, going on 13 years now. And I learn new things every day.
Right.
And so it's still a very new pedagogy versus a traditional environment. I think you just have to know your kids.
Yep.
You have to know what's going to work well for them. What do they need?
Yeah.
I'm sure there are some kids that could be 5 or 6 and do very well online.
Yeah.
But there's a lot that probably couldn't.
Yeah.
And so, the biggest thing for me is you have to have a plan. And so we're going to sit down and we're going to know every single day that from 8 to 9, we're doing this. And from 9 to 10, we're doing that. And that's true even for our students in high school, is you have to have a plan. And if you think you can just enroll in our school and just wake up and just whenever you feel like it work, it's not going to work that way. And I think it's the same for you guys as professionals, as myself. You have to have a plan in order to get your things done and make sure that you're meeting all your marks.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it will be an interesting spring. I think we are better off now than we were, 3 or 4 or 5 months ago.
Sure.
The biggest thing that I really want to see is for teachers to get the training that they need to be successful.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot of teachers across our state that want to do a good job online and that are going to be now in the classroom in a few weeks, maybe blended, a little bit of both. But what I've seen, teachers have received very little training across the state with online learning. And that's a shame because we've had almost 6 months in this COVID life where we could have trained teachers on how to, better execute teaching from home. And we really haven't done that. So I hope we will see from this more training, more emphasis on online learning. One final point, if you go to USC or Clemson or COC, there is almost no mention of online teaching.
Right.
And I have advocated for a number of years, and hopefully that will start to change in the future. But we need to start teaching teachers how to teach online in college.
Right.
And, right now there are hundreds and hundreds of teachers that teach online full-time in South Carolina.
Sure.
And all of them really have taught themselves how to do it, or their school taught them after employment. We need to back it up and we need to understand that we have to teach teachers when they are in college that this is an option. You may not be the path you want to take, but if you're interested in this career field, here's how it's different. Here's how it, may be a good fit for you. Again, it's not a one size fit all. Same as for teachers. We have teachers that were exceptional teachers in a traditional setting.
Right.
They come online and maybe not as much, and sometimes vice versa.
Yeah.
And so we just need to do a better job of supporting teachers, because this is a very, very tough situation that they're put in.
I'm sure.
And we need to train them and support them to be successful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All good points. All good points.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah.
I know I learned a lot.
Yeah.
I'm sure you learned a lot.
I will see your notes.
Yeah. No, but thank you so much for your time, because I think especially now more than ever, people need to know what their options are, and everybody needs to, be better educated about the wonderful schools that our state does have to offer. So thank you so much. And I thank our listeners. And if anybody wants to get any additional information, feel free to click the link below.
Absolutely. Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Thank you.